Hidden in the dark recesses of the updated 2025 National Incident-Based Reporting System, or NIBRS manual, is one of the most consequential changes to crime data reporting in recent history. It's not hard to see why it's gone largely unnoticed, as this small line is the only clue to a really significant change. Blink and you'll miss it. But with this added injury type, the FBI will now be collecting non-fatal shooting data as a part of its monthly data collection, marking perhaps the biggest shift in attitudes towards gun violence research since the early 1990s. Unlike most other FBI announcements, there were no flashy press conferences, no fanfare, so we've taken it upon ourselves here at Aggregated to celebrate the change and commend the FBI's Criminal Justice Information Services Division. In this episode of Aggregated, we're going to talk a little bit about the history of gun violence research in the U.S. and why this change is so consequential. Welcome to another episode of Aggregated, your newest hub for information on crime data, trends, and analysis. I'm your host, Albert Lawrence. Let's dive in. Non-fatal shooting data is hard to come by. The FBI's process has historically allowed for collection of fatal shooting data in homicides, but non-fatal shootings were lumped in as aggravated assaults. A mere few dozen cities regularly publish aggregated shooting victim data, and only a half dozen more publish victim-level data, providing details about the demographics and locations of shootings in their jurisdiction. There are also private entities like the Gun Violence Archive that collect shooting data from media reporting, the limitation there being whether the crime was reported in the news or not. But why do we need to collect this data? And why study non-fatal shootings at all? Well, most shootings are non-fatal. In fact, they vastly outnumber fatal shootings. Without cataloging these incidents in detail, we don't see the full picture of gun violence in our country and can't truly gauge its impact. Despite the general lack of data, recent attempts at addressing non-fatal shootings have led to fruitful collaborations between public health professionals and police to shorten response and hospital travel times to reduce the harm associated with gun violence. However, the picture remains incomplete as data continues to be hard to come by and even harder to generalize into trends, which is what makes the change in the FBI manual so imperative. NIBRS captures details of incidents that include information on the severity of injury to the victim. Now, law enforcement agencies across the country will have a formal way to register a non-fatal shooting as an aggravated assault victim with a gunshot wound. It'll take some time for agencies to become proficient with reporting non-fatal shootings, but this seemingly minor change will eventually allow for a much fuller understanding of gun violence in the United States. Thanks for joining us today. Join us here for our next episode of Aggregated, where we discuss one of the ways police performance is measured: crime clearances, or the amount of crime that gets solved.